Hello, all. Um, Good night, good morning to you all when you're listening to this. Um, I apologize if I'm speaking a little low, but I don't want to wake up the neighbors or everyone else in my apartment because it is currently 11:25 p.m. Eastern, and shortly after Rutgers suffers its sixth straight loss, its longest losing streak in 8 years, the second longest under Steve Peichel. They've had a couple of 7 game losing streaks under Peichel in his first couple of years. They had not gotten to the 6 game losing streak mark again since his second year in the helm, and it was hard to find a more embarrassing way to get to this point. Rutgers gets absolutely demolished by UCLA, 98-66. It narrowly avoids being the third time in 14 Big Ten games that Rutgers gives up 100 because because Mick Cronin showed some mercy at the end and did not go for did not let his walk-ons go for the last shot. It is UCLA's biggest win over a Big Ten team since joining the league, so a sample size of just about 30 games. And it is the seventh loss in a true road game in as many true road games. It is in that span the sixth time in 7 true road games that Rutgers goes down at least 19 points. Just a lot of bad to come out of this. Even the good has some bad. So for all of you guys that are tuning in now, I appreciate it. And I imagine that you're not looking for a silver lining after seeing that. And I think that's good because there really is no silver lining here, right? So let's just I'm going to go through the first half because it sets the stage for the second half. The positives. Caden Powers has a breakout first half. He scores 18 points on 7 of 8 shooting. Let me make sure I have that correct. Yes, 18 points on 7 of 8 shooting, 3 of 3 on threes, 2 assists, 3 rebounds, plays as good as he's played all year as a freshman. Maybe it's his breakout. Maybe it's his one really, really good half of the year. We don't know, but he has 18 points on 8 shots. The second scorer you want with Tariq Francis that Rutgers has been needing all season shows up in the first half. Rutgers scores 40 points in the first half. That's pretty good. Tariq Francis chipped in 6 points in the first half. 8 points in the first half. Rutgers gets some contributions from Lino Mark. Harun Zerno hits a 3. Offensively, they shoot 53.3% from the floor. They shoot 6 of 12 on threes in the first half. And yet they go into halftime down double digits, down 12 points because they could not stop UCLA. They put up zero resistance defensively. Donovan Dent did whatever he wanted, driving into the lane and either getting to the rim or passing to an open three-point shooter. Their three-point shooter, whose name I'm probably going to botch here, Tyler Bilodeau, was scorching hot. He went 3 of 6 on threes in the first half. Trent Perry was playing really well. Xavier Booker hit 3 threes, I think, which is pretty nuts for a center. He hit, Xavier Booker. Oh my God. I'm looking through this box score for the first time, closely. Xavier Booker scored 24 points on 10 of 11 shooting from the floor, 4 of 4 from threes, and that's their center. My God. UCLA as a team shot 55.6% from the floor, 35 of 63, 12 of 21 on threes. That is 57.1%. And they went 10 of 16 at the rim. This is UCLA we're talking about. This is a team that takes a ton of mid-range jumpers. This was supposed to be a game of dueling, ugly offensive basketball styles, but Rutgers played so poorly defensively, had such little resistance, that they did basically whatever they wanted. Now, the first half, I didn't think the issue was effort, right? I think they crumbled down the stretch defensively, effort-wise. I think UCLA essentially could have scored as many points as it wanted in the second half. They're getting free drives to the rim, blowing by a defender, having no help defender there. Just it looked like the back half of a pickup game where one team that goes up really by a bunch of points and people are just kind of playing it out towards the end. But the first half, I thought the effort was there. It's just they could not stay in front of their man. They could not get out and guard the perimeter, and they could not force outside of a couple of Eric Daly bad mid-range shots. They could not force UCLA to take bad shots, and more importantly, Rutgers had 2 forced turnovers. UCLA had 2 turnovers all game. Rutgers forced 2 turnovers. They had 2 steals. If you can't force bad shots, if you can't force turnovers, and if you allow 10 offensive rebounds on 28 misses, that's a recipe for absolute disaster, and that's why Rutgers loses by 32. It is their second worst loss of the season. They had lost by 41 to Michigan. Let me make sure I have that right. It's not a good sign that I'm not sure if 32 points is the worst loss of the year. Yeah, it's the second biggest loss of the year. And look, we had said they were probably going to lose these 7 in a row, so I'm not surprised they've lost 6 in a row. We gave them credit for fighting against Michigan State and almost upsetting a top 10 team, for coming close against Iowa. I think you have to kind of give the reverse here and, give some flack for getting the doors blown off of them in the last leg of their 2-game LA trip. And even in the games where they showed some fight in the second half and made the score more respectable, they were down at one point by 26 points to Wisconsin. They were down by 19 points to UCLA. The only true road game they've played this year where they have not gone down by 19 or more points was Iowa. And Iowa plays some of the slowest pace of play in college basketball. So it's not exactly like you're playing explosive offense. So, I mean, it's alarming. I think the offensive issues have been discussed ad nauseum. Again, showed up here today, completely one-dimensional offensively, riding one hot hand, putting the ball in an offensive player's hands, and basically asking them to create their own shot outside of a couple of, plays. And then the confounding thing to me is that Caden Powers is 7 of 8 in the first half, and there's just no attempt to create a shot for him, to create some sort of open look for him. He had 7 shots in the first half, and they were all pretty much self-manufactured. A couple of tough threes, some mid-range jumpers where UCLA kind of conceded them and he hit them. So to go 7 of 8 like that is a miracle. He was bound to have some regression, but just the complete lack of, I don't know if it's effort, I don't know if it's creativity, I don't know if it's not knowing how to do it, but you got a guy who's having a career game filled with confidence, there to help out your leading scorer, and there's just no attempt to create an open 3 or even an open mid-range jumper off the catch or a cut to the rim. Just it's confounding. It's confounding. All that being said, again, the offensive issues have been talked about ad nauseum. The defensive struggles have been really bad this year. I mean, alarmingly bad, right? Like, that's supposed to be the one thing this program is supposed to be. There's a certain floor they're supposed to have defensively under Steve Pikiell. Steve Pikiell had talked about all preseason that this team was going to return to its roots, to its defensive roots, to play hard defensively, to be like his old teams that weren't very talented, weren't very skilled offensively, but could make up the gap defensively. We're not seeing that. Let me refresh KenPom here. Rutgers dropped 30 spots from 151 to 181 in defensive efficiency. In the Big Ten, it is the second least efficient defense in conference play. It is conceding 40.5% shooting on threes, 55.3% shooting on twos. Has a low block rate, decent steal rate, but it's giving up a 62.5% assist rate. UCLA today bumped that up a lot. They had 25 assists on 35 makes, which is ridiculous. So the defense is as alarming as the offense, maybe even more, because even Steve Pikiell's worst teams were at least combative, pesky defensively, and this team just isn't. And some of that again is because of the massive blowouts, but the massive blowouts are happening much more often than you would like. So um, there is a chance that Saturday is more of the same. Nebraska is very efficient offensively. They take a lot of threes. They're very creative. They cut off the ball a ton. They're a hard offense to scout. Um, Rutgers is going to have a long flight home tonight. Tomorrow is essentially a wash, and they'll have probably 2 days to prepare again for a very intricate system with a lot of talented players. So I would be surprised if this streak doesn't reach 7 straight losses, which is the longest under Steve Peichel. It's going to come down to can they end that streak against a Maryland team that is probably roughly at their talent level. They'll be playing them at home. They'll have an entire week off to prepare. And that game is meaningless outside of the fact of one, getting a bump ahead of Maryland and maintaining some distance from the bottom, the absolute bottom of the Big Ten, and two, preventing this year from having maybe not a rock bottom because we can find a couple of others, but another significant low in the Steve Peichel era. So not great times here. I'll go through some comments now. Accuracy that was embarrassing. It's hard not to feel that way if you're a Rutgers fan, I would imagine. KC49 says another big night for Rutgers athletics. Big night in a bad way, I imagine. Tort says UCLA fans are a bunch of losers with a tons of empty seats. Fair weather fan base, no doubt. Pauley Pavilion is an iconic venue. You would think that place would be sold out, but it seems like it's a place where if you're not in the top 25, it's not going to get packed. High standards over there in Westwood, which when you win as many national championships as they have, I don't blame them, I guess. But yeah, I was told by boots on the ground that the attendance was rather disappointing at both LA schools. So I guess that's also part of the deal when you play Rutgers, one of the worst teams in the Big Ten at 6:30 on a Tuesday night. Not exactly a box office hit either, but I would agree that the attendance did not look great. Right Science Fiction says any RU player who took NIL money at the start of the season needs to pay it back. Well, I mean, if you do a bad job at work, do you have to give your paychecks back? They're paying for labor. They're not paying for positive results. So if the players are not good enough to play at this level, I wouldn't blame them. I blame the people that paid them to be here because they had bad evaluations. If you were offered more money than you're worth, hypothetically, would you say no? Come on. Let's be fair to the players. The responsibility, again, is, in my opinion, always more on the side of who brought them in, who decided they were good enough for this level, who is not getting the most out of them. Those people are more responsible than the players themselves. Peichel has lost the team. Absolutely no heart or pride. Do not deserve to wear a scarlet. Look, I don't know if he's lost the team or if just it just isn't there, right? Like I don't think that they're losing. The margin is, yes, probably for lack of effort in the second half, but they're not losing these games because they don't care. It's just they're just not. They can't match up on the court as far as talent, and coaching wise, there is a lot to be desired, as we've discussed. Do not deserve to wear the scarlet. I think that's a bit of an emotional reaction, but everyone as a fan has the right to feel the way they do. Ryan Forbes, the team has lacked focus and treated this as a vacation. Again, I can't psychoanalyze their motivations here. They were in California for 4 days. They went to the Santa Monica Pier, I believe. That's what it looked like on social media. Whatever. I mean, what were they going to do? Stay in their hotel room locked up and do the UCLA scouting report for 2 days? Like, come on. Byfall is looking for a medical redshirt and plan to transfer. Confirmed. He won't be coming back. I think even if he was healthy and not planning to redshirt, he probably wouldn't be here because he is not a power four player. He's probably not even a high major player. He probably belongs in a mid major to low major level, if that, right? So I mean, that's not exactly a surprise, Ryan, but I appreciate you sharing that with the live. Richard Williams says, well, we got smoked. 1 more month to go. They looked like the football team playing good first half and not make adjustments in the second half. I don't think adjustments was the issue here. I just think that UCLA was significantly more talented with a more heralded coach. And while Rutgers put up some resistance in the first half, the difference in talent both on the court and on the bench, was very evident in the second half, and that explains the gap. Who would you say is most disappointing player so far? I think Grant and Badalao are easily top of the list. Ben Hernandez asks. I guess I would say Grant, and so only because of the expectations we placed on him as the go-to guy for this roster. I would agree that he has not lived up to that label outside of some sporadic performances early in the year. Smoked the layup today in the second half. Again, it doesn't really matter because it wouldn't have changed the outcome, but just one play that stuck out to me is, it's just that's the kind of play you got to make routinely if you are um, if you're going to be the best player on a Big Ten team. And as I've said before, maybe that's a responsibility that he was not ready for it, but that was thrust on him because there's no one else on this roster, right? Dylan Grant could be a good player as part of a rotation. I just don't know if he could be a feature guy. And there's no one else on this roster that could be a feature guy outside of Tariq Francis, who what he gives offensively doesn't give as much defensively as Grant's potential is. And Badalao, I just think, is a bizarre case. Started the year as a starter, got a lot of buzz preseason within the program for his offensive skill set, for his shooting, and now he is essentially the white flag coming in for the first time into the game in the second half when they're down an insurmountable double-digit deficit. I almost feel bad for him, right? I almost feel bad for him for, again, the very limited usage he's getting. At that point, I don't even know why you put him in the game. I think he's been disappointed, but again, I think he's the disappointment is a product of expectations that were thrust upon him. In this case, by the buzz that was coming out of the program, in the offseason, late in the offseason, I should say. But again, I guess that would be the answer to my question because it's all about expectations. Like I think Obole is about as good, maybe even a little better than we expected. Darren Buchanan has kind of found his footing. Tariq Francis has been better than expected, no doubt about that. Bryce Dortch has been a bit of a utility guy. He's kind of fit the role that he's been asked to do. Chris Newley has not been playing as great as I thought. I thought he'd have a little bit more of a role, particularly as a defensive guy. Just has not really been able to find any sort of footing through this year. Herman Zerno, I guess, has been disappointing to an extent, has had some good games, most of which his contributions were well after a game was out of hand. And I have the next comment here is an answer from Ryan who says, Jamichael, I'm assuming an answer to Ben Hernandez's question. I just think Jamichael's playing about as well as I expected. He's I think reaching the heights of his potential, right? He's an undersized guard in the Big Ten who cannot finish at the rim, who cannot create offensively. But what he does is he doesn't turn the ball over and he tries hard, right? And he hits the threes when he's open. They just don't create enough open threes for him to shoot. I just, Jamichael Davis is shooting, where the number, where is it? 36.7% on threes. That number is only that high because of a selected number of threes. He should take more. So I think Jamichael Davis is meeting my expectations of what I expected from him. J. Mike says, I can't believe I stayed up to watch the whole thing. You and me, brother. What a mess. I'm more interested in finding out if the great One Piece heist has been solved. Still working on our investigation. No solution, but time is of the essence considering Saturday is the final day of the giveaway. So we're trying to figure more of that out for you guys tomorrow. The team skipped key film sessions to go to the Santa Monica Pier. Again, come on. I just, you're not going to hold these guys up in a hotel room and make them watch film like it's Clockwork Orange, right? Like peering their eyelids back. Like it's fine to enjoy the Santa Monica Pier, especially when it's not like they flew in one day, played a game, and then flew back out. They were there for 4 days. You got to kill time somehow. And they're only doing this trip every 2 years. So I have no problem personally with that. Maybe don't put it on social media. That's another discussion. Again, I have no problem with that. I can understand, some angst there, but if they won the game, no one would care if they posted that on social media or if they went to the pier. So let's not make much ado about that. Defense has nothing to do with NIL. It has to do with effort. Defense has to do with NIL insofar as you are undersized in the backcourt and you have no dependable center. And when you have limited horses, you could have the highest effort in all of the world. You could put me at point guard, Steve Politi at center, and we could play balls to the wall until our lungs explode. But when I'm facing Donovan Dent and I can't keep up with him off the dribble, and Politi can't jump 5 inches off the ground to try to protect the rim, then it doesn't matter, right? They have had success defensively with effort in previous games, certainly, but that was not really in a half court defense. That was more so forcing turnovers. Yes, sometimes in the half court, sometimes out of inbounds with the press, but that is where they can find success defensively with effort. But when you're a team like UCLA that doesn't turn the ball over, actually, I should check that if that's true before just spewing. Yeah, they have the 20th lowest turnover rate in the country. And when you can't force turnovers, I think that's when the Rutgers defense really gets exposed significantly. And then, UCLA hit some shots, open threes they got. So that doesn't help either. What happens first? That DC gets hired or Hoops gets a win. Considering I think Rutgers' next win is going to be against Maryland on February 15th, I would have to say the latter, because if it's the former, then mayhem will have happened in Piscataway. I think that's going to be resolved. It's got to be resolved at sometime soon. I know we've been saying that for a month now, but if it's not done by the Maryland game, regardless of the result, that would be beyond shocking. The angst level right now is at a 10. I cannot imagine what it would be then. I imagine it'll be filled, because at that point we'd be a month away from spring ball. You got to have somebody in there, and then you have to fill out the rest of the defensive positions. So they've been running against the clock for weeks now. I imagine this was asked a bit tongue in cheek, but it is a fair question. Grant is a shell of himself from last year. I wonder if it's effort or aggression. I think it's not having 2 top 5 NBA draft picks on the roster to alleviate some pressure. It's one thing to have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey having a lot of gravity towards them when they have the ball, a lot of defensive attention paid to them. When you have Tariq Francis and nobody else really, that puts a lot more defensive pressure on him, and he's not quite at a level where he can overcome being the first or second guy on the scouting report. So Curious says he won't be attending on Saturday. Well, I'm sad to hear that, but I appreciate the heads up. So I won't be craning my neck the whole game to the 200s to shout you out. Hope you're going to enjoy your Saturday, doing something else other than watching Rutgers play Nebraska. Ryan Forbes asked if the college basketball crown is still a possibility. They would probably have to win at least 4 more games, probably sweep Maryland and Penn State. At this point, they're probably far out of the contention. Do you really want to see them in the crown? I would get, I guess, if you want to see them as a fan, but I just don't know if that's that's a desire at this point. Right, Science Fiction says that Grant plays scared. Oboli plays as if he's all right. That's okay. Come on, let's not be mean here. Buchanan plays as if he's farsighted. It's really not funny anymore. Look, sorry, folks. I accidentally hit the back button and just left you guys there for a couple seconds. Sorry. I'll just leave your observations up there and won't really comment. UCLA is pound for pound the weakest college fan base in the country. Thankful to be a Rutgers fan regardless of the results. I guess. We could probably argue back and forth about weakest. UCLA football doesn't have a huge fan base either, and UCLA as an athletic department has a huge deficit compared to similar to Rutgers, I should say. So it's not like UCLA is some blue blood program like like an Indiana. Well, I guess they are kind of like Indiana as like former programs that built their blue blood status decades and decades ago. But I will say their crowd was very disappointing on TV. UCLA Alec from the Night Report with the stats. Much appreciated. UCLA came into the game ranking in the bottom 100 nationally in 3-point rate and 3-point percentage, but shot 12 of 21 tonight. So many wide open ones off simple drives and kicks from Donovan Dent. There you go. Well, they got the open threes and they hit them. I guess you can take more threes when the open ones become so available. Again, they could not keep up with Donovan Dent off the dribble. When that happens, he gets collapsed upon, which opens up the defenders on the wings, and they had a 40% shooter in Tyler. Let me get his name up so I don't pronounce it. In Tyler Bilodeau, and he knocked him down. So when you can't take multiple things away as a defense, that really gets you exploited. Ryan Forbes asked me Super Bowl predictions with no Rutgers players in the game. There's a former Rutgers coach, Zach Kerr, the defensive play caller for the Patriots, was the Rutgers running backs coach 2016 under Chris Hatch, which is unbelievable. I got Seattle winning by a lot. I'm shocked the number is still -4.5 at this point in the week. I think it could be like last year where the Eagles just ran all over the Chiefs. I think this could be a repeat of that. I know the Patriots defense is good. I know Drake May is okay. He's having a good year. I just don't think the Patriots have played anyone, and I think the Seahawks went through a gauntlet in the NFC. They beat the Rams, who were maybe the most talented team in the NFL, and they're loaded. The Seahawks are loaded. So again, unless something crazy happens, I really do think that this will be a pretty boring, quote unquote, Super Bowl because I think Seahawks are gonna dominate it. Kelly Blue says, "I get why Francis doesn't start, but he has to be starting the second half." Uh, I am coming around to that take. I think Danny Breslau had a great stat. They were 24 down 24-8 after if you combine the first 4 minutes of both halves. Yeah, they cannot create anything offensively when he's not on the floor. And even in a game like where Caden Powers is playing really well at the start of the first half, you can't depend on that because he has not shown that outside of today. So maybe there is something to Rick Francis starting the game. If he's able to keep up offensively, there isn't this pressure to come back from a massive hole, and you're kind of keeping even. I could understand the logic. Again, I don't think that's a major factor here, but I will say that today's game has helped sway me in the direction of maybe put the guy in the starting lineup. Right Science Fiction says, I just don't understand how this gets better under Pike's tenure. I think that's a sentiment that is growing within the fan base based on the comments we've gotten, in our emails and in our live chats and our podcasts and all that. If you're looking for a silver lining or a glass half full, he's going to have more money to work with this offseason than he ever has in NIL. That is a very low bar to clear, but it's going to happen. So that's kind of you got to put your hope that he's going to have more money to work with. He's going to have another voice in the room with Rob Sullivan, the GM. I would assume I'm led to believe that there will be some changes in the offseason because as far as the coaching staff, because you can't run it back with the same guys again. I mean, you just can't. It's infeasible to do that, right? You can't fire the head coach obviously because of his enormous buyout, but and you probably can't move Brandon Knight because would be owed $1.5 million if you fire him after the season. But the rest of the coaching staff is on 1-year deals, which is standard across college basketball. There's got to be, the heads have to roll to some extent, and there's got to be new blood and new voices in the room. So if you have confidence in that happening, you have confidence in the money, and you have confidence that that money will be used appropriately, which I understand all of them are leaps of faith, considering what's happened with this program over the last couple of years. That's where you find your hope and your silver lining. But I can understand maintaining your sentiment because the last 3 to 4 years of the program have not really given you much reason to be hopeful. Alec, noted Seahawks fan, says I sound really smart. That's a little nod to you, buddy. I hope you're happy on Sunday personally, because I just don't think it's fair for the Patriots to go off the greatest dynasty in the league history, have the greatest quarterback and coach in league history, and then suddenly be back in the Super Bowl faster than some teams who have never been in the Super Bowl. Like, if you're a Texans fan, you got to be sick to your stomach watching these guys get back in the Super Bowl when you've never, you made the AFC Championship game. Like, it's brutal. I mean, good for the people in New England or whatever, but just brutal. Any updates on incoming NIL deals without more money? Not seeing how Rutgers turns this around. Rutgers is going to have more money. I don't know, to what extent, how much more money they're going to have. We've heard some numbers floating around, but I don't know that to the exact amount where it is now. I don't know where it's going to be by March either, or by April when the portal opens. But I also don't know how much more money everyone else is going to get, because that's the other half of the equation that we don't really talk about, is that, yes, Rutgers is going to have more money. Again, the bar is so low for them to have more money, but so is everyone else in the league. You don't think like all these other teams, except for maybe Penn State and maybe Minnesota, teams that are kind of doomed to stay at this level, like, you don't think they're all going to get more money? They're all going to get more money, and they're all going to invest more, and the market's going to be as competitive as ever. So it's going to be about, they're going to have more money to be competitive, but they're still going to have to kind of moneyball it to a certain extent. So we'll see if they're able to do that. Our luxury suites coming to the rack next season per Rich. I'm not sure. I'm assuming you mean Rich's podcast, the On Three podcast. I don't know that for a fact. I would imagine Kelly Zinn has been very public about her desire to do that. to add amenities to the rack. They clearly need more revenue. That is a revenue stream that's not currently available. I don't know the feasibility of it. I don't know where they would put it. I know they've been putting donors in the area across from the media section. They've been putting people there. I don't know if that's premium seating or whatever. I don't know. There's probably some more courtside options to happen. There's some more creative things to do, I guess, but I don't anticipate a Jersey Mike's Arena overhaul this offseason. At least I haven't heard that yet. Is it possible? I guess anything's possible, but I would be surprised if there was anything beyond minor, cosmetic changes. KC says, do you think there's another coach in America that has a 73 and 115 record in conference that's still employed? Maybe, possibly. Thank Pat Hobbs for giving the enormous contract to a coach that had won one NCAA tournament game, albeit at a place like Rutgers that hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in 30 years, let alone win an NCAA tournament game. So I think that context matters when discussing Pat's overzealousness, but obviously I think some of that was that Steve Pikiell was his guy, was like his golden ticket to prove that he's a good AD who knows how to hire coaches, and he wanted to kind of bump that up with giving him a huge contract. So the blame lies on Pat Hobbs and the fact that Rutgers does not have the kind of money to erase that kind of mistake, right? Texas A&M could do that with Jimbo Fisher. Rutgers can't do that with its coaches if it overextends a guy. So, but I would have to do some more research on that. I don't know that definitively. There may be other places in the country. Because Rutgers is not the only place that is begging for a head coaching change in its fan base. So, you were at Jason Curry was at the game. Jason, appreciate you showing up to the live and giving us a live report. Would be interested to hear what the ambiance was like from inside the arena. It did not look like a great crowd. The loudest chants I heard all night, at least from the TV, were when a walk-on wanted to when the fans were chanting for a walk-on to check in, which is never a good sign. I mean, that the Aiden Terry treatment on the road is brutal to take for Rutgers in a Big Ten game. So I think that was kind of a good sign of the domination more than anything. Frank says, not sure who would take this job without significant NIL cash. That's another thing to consider, right? The attractiveness of the job. The number one thing is how much money do you have in the NIL? There's something to be said about a new coach bump. Hope is always highest when there is a new coach. And with that comes a little bit loosening of the wallets for people that want it to work out. I don't know if that's a surefire, strategy, right? I mean, maybe the money just doesn't show up, but a lot of coaches, like Signetti is the famous example. Obviously, when he went to Indiana, he wanted certain NIL assurances, and they got it. And he even said in the spring, his first spring, that it was more money than he had thought. But every coach is going to want certain NIL assurances before they accept a job, right? And you got to meet that minimum standard. So that's Kelly Zinn's. That's the cross that she has to bear. Whoever's the coach, that they have to raise enough NIL money to be competitive. Musically says, ask for Pikiell to start Francis again. I agree. So insofar as maybe it's changing things up after a 6-game losing streak. Steve Pikiell had said he doesn't change his lineup after wins. Apparently, he doesn't change his lineup after losses either, because they've stuck with the same 5 for a few games now. So Frank R says that Mick Cronin had some great post-game comments, talked about haves and have-nots. I will have to listen back to that, but it's a little late. I might do that tomorrow morning when I wake up. So we shall see. Thank you guys for tuning in for a half hour at midnight on a Tuesday. Always great to chat with you guys. Unless there's any last second comment, I will stick around for another minute. And unless there are not, I'm going to check out Are You Hoops Project. Can we whine about having to travel across the country like Mick Cronin does after every road trip? Every coach in the Big Ten whines about the travel. Obviously, Mick Cronin does it to the highest degree, but he does do more travel than the East Coast teams do, and he loves to whine. So I'm not surprised about the Mick Cronin whining, but I think he has a case to a certain degree. I agree that those battles are best fought behind closed doors, but I don't know what's happening in the Big Ten meetings. Maybe they're not hearing him out, so he tries to put him on blast. Musically is insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I agree. Musically, it's like a lot of people coming into this chat after every game and discussing Steve Pikiell's job security, and knowing that you're going to get the same answer from me every time. So I agree that in that definition, there is some insanity amongst you guys, especially again for staying up until 11:30 to watch a game that Rutgers loses by 32, and then tuning into uh, our live stream to watch me talk about that game. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you always checking in. I appreciate you liking and subscribing and participating and being a part of our little project over here. So I'm going to call it there, midnight, Wednesday, February 4th. Thanks you all for tuning in. And we will talk if there is a DZ hired. We'll talk, when that happens. If that doesn't happen by Saturday, we'll talk after the Nebraska game on Saturday. So until then, enjoy the rest of your week, guys, and I'll see you then. Later.